both potentially paving the way for tax reform. Joining us right now is Delaware Senator Chris Coons. And Senator, thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you, Becky. Good morning.
Let's talk a little bit about the tax reform or tax cut bill, or however people want to refer to this. We don't know all the details. We know some, but the countdown is on, at least to get this done before the end of the year. What have you heard, and what are your thoughts on this?
Well, Becky, so far, as you said, we don't have a bill. What we've got is a sort of broad, gauzy outline. And there are some concerns already being expressed in the Senate by both Republicans and Democrats that the amount that it would raise the deficit and potentially add to the debt is too large, that the details aren't yet clear, and that the process that has gotten us thus far was too much of a secret behind closed doors, one-party-only deal. There are Democrats like me who would like to work across the aisle to find ways to reduce the tax rate and to broaden the base and to find a way to do that that increases tax relief for the middle class. That's what the president has said is his goal, but we're only going to get there if we have a bipartisan and open process.
Senator, let's be clear, though. At this point, you're not in the game. What really matters is if the Republicans can solidify their own base and come up with the votes to come through with this. You've mentioned that in the Senate there are some Republicans who have concerns. What do you think the odds are that those concerns can be met and that the Republicans can do this on their own?
Well, the outline that we've seen so far includes cutting $470 billion from Medicare in the 10 years ahead. It included eliminating the deduction for state and local property taxes. Both of those, I think, will prove to be very unpopular. Senator Bob Corker, Senator Rand Paul, both of whom have demonstrated a willingness to buck their caucus for matters of principle, have already said they're likely opposed to it. So Majority Leader Mitch McConnell will have great difficulty rounding up 50 votes if he's going into this with two already expressing real concerns. This is the same thing that happened, Becky, with the health care reform package. Something that was done really one party, without hearings, without an open process, and ultimately failed. They only have a few months to get this done, actually a few weeks of legislative time. So my hope is that they'll get the details clarified soon and start working in an open and bipartisan process.
Look, they probably have a much better shot of getting this passed than getting health care, because health care is a much bigger morass. Tax cuts are much more in line with what the Republicans are able to kind of coalesce around. It's been
That's right, Becky, but
platform.
the core question here is whether these have to be paid for in some way, and whether the pay for is simply going to be aspirational economics, believing that there's going to be more than 3% growth as a result of tax cuts, or having to identify and offset a pay for. Right now,
my guess
one
is
of the
at
big
this
pay
point
fors
it's probably
is a huge
going to
cut
be
to
dynamic
Medicare.
scoring, and what they think growth will come as a result of cutting taxes.
That's right. Senator Corker has expressed a real concern about whether there will be anything like the growth required to cover a multi-trillion-dollar tax cut, and I think he's got a reasonable concern there.
All right, let's say, I think it's a toss-up right now whether this gets passed with Republicans alone. Let's say they don't. What type of issues would make you come to the table and say, I will, in good faith, negotiate and try and come to some sort of an agreement?
Well, President Trump has said that what he wants is a tax cut that primarily benefits America's middle class. And there's things that we can and should do that I think would make American companies more competitive internationally, that would make them more likely to invest in infrastructure and capital expenditures, and that would expand some successful tax breaks that benefit middle-class families. Some of those are already in the broad brush document that we've got, but some of those issues aren't addressed in a plan that right now is skewed too heavily towards the wealthiest.
So you're bothered by things like what, the estate tax?
Yes, that's one that's, I look at that up front and it suggests to me that perhaps this will overly benefit the wealthy, given what the president says his objective is. But, Becky, we also don't have a JCT score, a Joint Committee on Tax. We don't know what this will cost or how it will play out because we don't have a bill yet. There aren't details yet.
We did hear that there is a chance that a fourth income bracket would be added, and that would be maintaining the highest tax bracket that we have at this point. Yesterday we talked to Congressman Brady, Chairman Brady, and he says none of this has been decided at this point, but if something like that were to develop where you maintained that highest income tax level for the wealthiest Americans, would that satisfy some of your concerns?
Well, that might satisfy others in my caucus. I'm principally concerned about not having baked into this a massive cut to Medicare, not paying for tax cuts by taking away access to health care benefits for millions of Americans. And I'd like to see us do more for capital investment, for manufacturing, for renewables, by making permanent provisions of the code that help to accelerate growth.
All right, Senator, I want to thank you for your time. It sounds like it's going to be a while before we figure out if you're going to be playing on the field at all.
That's right, Becky.
Okay. Senator, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, the front lines of the war against